Okay, everybody. I'm Ken Van Dyne. I work on the Content Hub. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about a few of the features we have coming up. I'll start out by explaining a little bit what Content Hub is all about for those that might not be familiar with it. But as most people know, applications on the phone run in a confined manner where they don't have access to data that belongs to other apps or content. I'm Ken Van Dyne. I work on the Now I'm hearing myself. Hold on. I wanted to talk a little bit about a few of the features we have coming up. I'll start out by explaining a little bit what content. That always happens to me. Anyway, so when applications need to open its content or pick content from other applications, they can use Content Hub to exchange that content. So for example, if you're in an app that wants to open a picture to edit it maybe and add some special effects or maybe send it to somebody or whatever, it can actually request the picture from the Gallery app. So you'll get a list of applications that provide photos, and the Gallery app can advertise it provides photos and provides a picking UI that lets you select photos, maybe more than one. And the Content Hub handles that exchange. So it lets that content go from the Gallery app to the app that's requesting it, because normally the app that's requesting it actually doesn't have permission to see that content that the Gallery app owns. So the Content Hub adds that bridge. And we've been, the Content Hub's been in the phone image for a long time now. It's been used in quite a few apps. And we've been adding some more features to it recently, which is kind of interesting. A couple of things that we have in the works, which I don't have demos for yet. I have one demo I'll show last. But one of the things I've been working on, which Ted's been helping me out with a bit, is trusted prompt sessions. So in case people aren't familiar with it, it gives us the ability to embed one application inside of another application. So it appears to the shell or to the phone when you're flipping through apps as one app. And the other app that's running embedded is actually still running under its own confinement rules. It's protected the same way. It's just the applications are embedded together. They're like a parenting kind of thing going on. So we're working on for content picking, the ability to say, you want to pick that photo from Gallery app. When it starts Gallery app, instead of starting Gallery app as a separate process and then taking focus, which what happens today, and then if you actually switch between apps, you can see switching between your app and the Gallery app. We don't really want that. So we've been working on this trusted prompt sessions where the Gallery app will run embedded inside of or on top of your app. And when the picking process is done, it'll go away. So I've got a proof of concept working. That's there. I've been waiting for Ted Gould to finish up some improvements that I asked for in Ubuntu App Launch to make my code a little bit better. And once he's done with that, I'll be landing that. So we should see some cleaner, tighter integration there on the phone real soon. Another thing that's recently landed, this is already in Vivid, is the ability to share not just files and links, but also text content. This isn't all that easy to demo yet, but it's setting the stage for when we can have apps actually add custom actions to the little input popover. So like when you're in the browser and say you want to select some text, you long press on some text, you get a little selector, you can select some text, and you get a little popover that says copy, paste, etc. We want apps to be able to add, like say, a share action there. So to share that what you've selected. So maybe you can select some text there and click share and then post it to Twitter. So in the past, we were limited in what kind of content we could exchange between files or URLs. So now we've added the ability to share text. So once we have that in the toolkit, so you can add things like a share action there, the backend will be able to support that. So that's there now, which is pretty cool. The other thing we're going to be working on a lot in the near future is tighter integration for scopes. So allowing scopes to take advantage of Content Hub. And Content Hub is used for not just selecting content from another app, but also opening content inside of another app or sharing it, maybe a share action like to Twitter or Facebook or a Telegram contact, etc. So I've got a little proof of concept that I put together to show this off, where you can select the link inside of a scope and share that with a friend on Telegram. Now, and what we there's a big piece of this is still missing, is we need to implement a peer picker that can run inside of the scope. Because right now, inside of an app, when you try to share content, you get a selector to choose all the apps that say it can share that type of content. We don't have a way to do that yet inside the shell, inside the scope. So we're working on that. So right now, in my demo, it's hard-coded, so it only shares to Telegram. But to do this, one interesting bit to this is I implemented a URL dispatcher handling. So you can actually launch, not just from a scope, but from anything using a URL to share content via the Content Hub. So you can construct the URL with the transfer, the information needed for the transfer, the path to the file or whatever, and the app ID of the app that's going to take your content, and it'll launch it via URL dispatcher. So it was real easy to get Chris Wayne to wire this up in the Etsy scope for me and have a little button that says share on Telegram, and it shares it to your friends. So I will demo that now. Screen share. All right, so here's a little video of the scope, and it'll move through pretty quickly here, but you'll notice I'll select an item, and at the bottom there will be a button to share it. World's Greatest Daddy. And that moved very quickly there, but it took the URL and shared it to my friend Chris Wayne on Telegram. So once we have the peer picker built to allow this to be embedded nicely inside of inside the scopes, we'll have the ability to pick whatever application you want to actually share that with. And it could be more than just sharing too. It could be, well, Ted's being funny, of course. Tell and show. And it could also be open with. So like say you want to take a photo in your My Photos scope and you want to open it with some other application. Maybe you have a third-party gallery app, not the default one, and you want it, but it's in your gallery. So you can go into that scope and say, I want to open it with, and pick an application you want to open that content with. Or maybe there's a file scope in the future, then you can have a PDF file and you want to open it with Doc Viewer. So instead of just viewing content inside the scope, you'll be able to interact with other applications using that same content. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to share. Those are the things we're working on right now. There's a feature that has been requested for some time now. We still have it on our radar, but we haven't started working on it yet, and that's MIME type support. So we will be getting to that eventually, but I can't say when. I'm not really sure. We really gotta work on the scope work first. So hopefully we'll get to that soon. All right, so Michael Hall has a question about, is there a security concern about automatically sharing based on a button click like that? No, not really, because remember the scope isn't actually what's doing the sharing. Is it's sending that content to this other application and allowing the other application to do the work. So it doesn't actually do the share. It just tells the other application, here's some content that we want to share. I guess there could be some concern about sending this content to some other app, but these are apps that should be expecting that content, and you're choosing to send it to that. I don't think there's really any implications there. No, Mike, it doesn't go straight to your Telegram friends. It opens Telegram and lets you select a contact. And actually, my video was with an older version of Telegram. The latest version of the store actually not only lets you select a chat to share it with, but it gives you a dialogue confirming that you really want to share it to that person. So it doesn't just automatically go. You get prompted, do you want to share this with Chris Wayne? And you can say yes, or select a different chat, or cancel, which completely cancels the share. So you're completely in control. Yeah, but the app needs to handle it somehow. So legacy apps is a good question. So question, Grayback asked, will this work with legacy apps? Well, the URL dispatcher trick that we have right now, sure, it could work with some changes to those legacy apps. We have some. We really need to spec out the work on how we're going to support legacy apps or desktop apps in general. Um, there's a lot of things we need to think about there. So I think in the short term, we will have some legacy app support where these apps run unconfined, with the exception of like in the Snappy desktop case, they will run under some confinement. We will need to do some stuff there to AppArmor profiles to allow them to have access to like some of the well-known directories like tilde documents or whatever. We could potentially do that to help support those legacy apps. If we need to try to come up with a better solution than that, I would love to see like a file picker type UI that the toolkit could expose that lets you pick content from applications using Content Hub integration. But we really need to spec that work out. We haven't done it yet, and it's becoming a pretty high priority for us now with the convergence work coming up. So we'll be having meetings about that. Let's see, no more questions yet. Anybody else have questions? All right, Grayback has another question. If I have two apps which both provide images and I want to pick an image, do I need to recall which app has a particular image I want? Well, yes, you do. That'd be a pretty tricky thing to solve in our sandboxing, because each application owns their own content, and there's no way to know what content the applications have. So that gets pretty tricky. I don't have a solution for that. Yes, you do need to know which application you want to pick the content from. Sharing chunks of text. So you mean just like selected text? Michael Hall had a question. He wants to know if he wants to share chunks of text works. Yes. So that has landed in Vivid now. You can have any arbitrary amount of text shared, and it'll send it to the application that you want it. Again, it's not terribly useful yet, because I think the most interesting use case is selecting text like copy and paste and choosing share as opposed to just copy or paste. And it's effectively like copy and paste in between apps, but it kind of shortcuts it. It says, these are your sharing apps and I want to share this content. Michael Hall had another question. Can a scope be a Content Hub source? So my app could query the music scope rather than the music app. Well, that's a very interesting question, because I think theoretically it could. Although right now I don't think scopes actually own any content. They just expose content. But I think, in my opinion, we should treat scopes just like apps. And perhaps we could have a media scope that is the owner of some of this media that is shared. I think that would be a very interesting thing to solve. I'm not sure what other people feel about that, but I would like to see that. Grayback has another question. Will Content Hub allow picking from removed sources like Dropbox, or would I need a Dropbox app installed? Yes, you need to have the app installed in order to pick it. So because the Content Hub actually doesn't provide the interface for picking the content. It just provides the bridge between the two apps to transfer that content. So it relies on the other app to provide the experience that you're going to have browsing the content. Like the gallery app's the best designed app we have that knows how to present a list of images and let you select them. So that's our focus there. Let's see. So Stuart asked, can Dropbox File Manager or File Manager be a content sink? So I can share anything from any app, which then be uploaded to Dropbox. Not necessarily. Yeah, so UDrop Cabin already does something like this. But the idea here is the other application provides the interface for interacting with that content. So yes, it could, theoretically, you could have an app that takes content, passed to it, and uploads it somewhere. And I think that's what UDrop Cabin does now with Dropbox. But it needs to provide an application with a surface, something that's visible in order to do this sort of thing, right? Because we switch to this application. When the application takes focus, it handles the signal. So we don't have background processes that handle this sort of thing. Right. So yeah, ImageGur is a good example of an app. So yeah, there's an ImageGur share handler right now where you can have any app that wants to share an image to post it to ImageGur for you. But it provides the UI for doing that upload, and afterwards it gives you a link, which then you could actually share that link. So it's actually a really interesting use case because it uploads the content and then gives you a link and asks you if you want to share the link. So then you share that link back to, say, like Twitter. So you go to share a photo, it uploads it to ImageGur, and then it shares to Twitter and posts the link on Twitter, or Facebook or whatever, or post the link in Telegram. Okay, so Aquarius is comment here that he finds it confusing. He's not sure how he knows what type of content an app provides or can take. So that's all done automatically for you. When you request a transfer, you display this content peer picker that we have, and you tell it what type of content you want, like say, for example, pictures. And then you also say whether or not you want to export that content or import that content, or if you want to share that content. And then it builds a grid, an application grid that lets you launch these peers, these applications, based on the applications that are registered with the Content Hub that provide that. So as an application developer, you don't need to go out and figure out what applications provide pictures. You just display the content peer picker, which gives you the list already filtered of applications that can only accept your content or receive your content, etc. Let's see. Michael Hall had another question. Can I make an app that only shows up via Content Hub, not in the app scope? If so, where does it get its icon and title information? Haha. So this is there's a trick to doing this that Ted hates it when I do this. But it's been done before. In, for example, the ImageGur share handler. In the desktop file, you can add a only show in equals old, I think is the trick in the desktop file. So then it gets all the information. It gets all the information from the desktop file, but then the app scope doesn't show it. But then it shows up in the peer picker. So that's the trick to doing it. We've done it in a couple apps already, and Ted hates it. He thinks we shouldn't be doing that. But right now, it's the only way to do it. M. Zanetti had a question. I still haven't fully understood how and when content is linked versus copied. If I want an app to read all the music, does everything need to be copied twice to the device? What if the music is on the SD card? Okay, so what the Content Hub does right now is it attempts to make a hard link to the content between the two that it's received, right? So it puts it into a directory usually called hub incoming, unless you've specified a location where you want it to go. But it's a location where your app has the ability to read data from. It creates a hard link there, which usually will work. So it doesn't have multiple copies of the content. But if that fails, which usually the only reason it would fail is if it's across file systems. So you can't hard link between two different file systems. So depending on the device, this might happen more often than not. Like Mako has more loop-back mounted file systems and things, so depending on where you're picking your content from. But usually it should work. The hard link should work. And if it fails, it does a copy. So we do try to prevent having multiple copies of it. I don't think if you want to read all the music off of from the music app, I don't know if that's really a great solution. I don't think you ever want to pick all the music. You just want to go and pick one song usually. I think, or perhaps a list of songs, but I don't think you ever want to like index all the music. Let's see. Michael Hall had another question. Can Content Hub share a directory, or does it have to share a URL for every file in the directory? Yes, right now it's only for files, not entire directories, although that could be pretty interesting, because I can see quite a few use cases for that. It would be interesting to do that. But yeah, right now, no, you have to provide one for each file. So you'd have to build content items for each file inside. Grayback has another question. How do I get content from a USB drive or SD card I just plugged in? Do I need some app to read that storage device? Yes. So right now, we don't have a way of doing this right now. We talked about this a little bit at our sprint in Austin last week. And we were thinking about maybe the removable storage app could be expanded to let you browse the files on that and export it, and like open it with other apps, and also be a content picker. But that's just early. We just briefly mentioned that. We need some sort of app that provides that interface. And there also has been some talk about a content storage framework. But these are all just ideas so far. We haven't actually solved those problems. So Stuart also partially comment, partially question here, but essentially he said that he wants his app to accept text files, but he doesn't know what Content Hub calls text files. So yeah, this goes into the MIME type support. Right now we have these well-known types. We have a list of well-defined types like documents, links, pictures, videos, music, etc. And we don't specify what type of content those really are. Your application says, I deal with pictures, and other apps say, I want apps that deal with pictures. Our plans for the MIME type support is to let an application say, these are all the types, the MIME types that I support, and let that peer picker filter on apps that can handle those specific MIME types. But we don't actually restrict the type of content that you attach to a content transfer based on the type you specified. Michael Hall had another question. Are you adding the ability to find colors for components in the content picker? You mean like the background? I'm assuming you mean like the background colors for like the header and things like that. We actually have a bug open related to that. And so we're going to solve the problem with needing more types by supporting the MIME types to allow applications to specify the specific MIME types that they handle. And we do have ebooks already, Michael. So Michael Hall asked, how do we add more new custom content types like ebooks? Right now, you can't add custom types. We have that. Our current API defines them as well-known types. So back in October, we added ebooks. So that support's been around for quite some time now. But eventually, it'll become more flexible by just supporting the MIME types. Grayback has another question. Would Content Hub do type conversions? Say I pick a PNG, but the app has JPEGs. You mean automatically convert the file? No, I don't think that would be up to the Content Hub to do that sort of thing. I think the app on either end would need to be able to do that. Yeah, Mike, the ebook should have been in 14.10. The docs weren't updated. I think I just had you refresh those recently, or maybe DPM did it. I can't remember who, but those landed in October. And one of the big problems we have with ebook support which I think Baru's really suffered with, is downloading from the browser. So the browser is has its own internal mapping for MIME types that get downloaded to well-known content types. And it's, a pretty static list that we've come up with because we don't have the MIME type support yet in Content Hub. So we determine if the file you're trying to download is in some list or a map of content types. And if it is, we prompt you to open it with an app that uses that well-known content type. So it's kind of a static mapping. It's not very complete, but it's there until we have full MIME type support in Content Hub. Let's see, any other questions? Hard to tell how much of a lag there is in the video and how long I should wait for questions before we wrap up. Stuart has another question. Would it be possible to publish a Help Developers Out app to the store, which registers as a source and destination for all types? And then when you try to share something with it, it prints out, this app tried to share things of type ebook. Okay, so not really, Stuart. So you can't register an app as supporting all types. Actually, yeah, no, you can't register an app. We did something for the file manager to kind of work around this, but I don't think it's registering. It only lets the file. The question is that the answer is I don't really remember, Stuart. So we did something to allow all types, but I think it might be just in one direction. Like when you I got to remember if the file manager shows up when you request anything. It might be possible, but I don't know if it's desirable. Maybe just as a developer's app, there could be something. Yeah, the open store. All right, Michael Hall has another question. Will Content Hub be able to share streams, sockets, or just static content? Just static content. I don't know if we need to get into that kind of thing. So yeah, Stuart. Yes and no. I mean, I can constantly argue, and I think I'm the only one, that the file manager really doesn't have a place on the phone, at least not for the average user. I don't think that's it. It's a good power user tool, but I think the average user, that's not how they're gonna interact with their content. And I think what we really need is just some richer support for types and stuff, so we have a better way of handling like, downloading books and using it in the applications that you would like to use it in. Like, better support for that. So like all the ebook types can just automatically be supported. Yeah, maybe I lost that too. So Savick, URL plus MIME type should be enough for streams, but not the way we handle the content exchange, because we create. Well, I guess with a hard link, it could be possible, but I don't know how it would work in a pure QML app. Because we really create a hard link between the two apps, paths that the two apps can access. When sharing, so sharing URLs, it doesn't create hard links. It just passes the URL onto the other app because there's no confinement issues there. All right, Michael Hall has another question. How often does Content Hub clean up after itself? If I share a bunch of image files between my file manager and image viewer, it seems to make my phone unstable. So when a transfer is complete, the application could choose to set the state to finalized. If it does, it will clean up the cached files, because if you don't tell it, you have the option in your app to say, I want to store my files in this path. You can give it a content store, in which case it'll make it permanent. It gives you a way to kind of store those files where you want from pure QML without using your own C++ plugin. But if you don't do that, it'll store things in this hub incoming cache directory. And you can, in your app, choose to finalize the transfer, which means you're done with the content. You don't need it anymore. It will clean it up automatically. Or when the Content Hub service stops, when the process quits for any reason, it will clean up all of the transfers that it did during its session. So there should never be anything lingering around from that. If there is, there's a bug. But I haven't seen that happen in quite some time. Grayback has another question. Will Content Hub be handling copy, paste, and drag and drop? Those are content sharing operations too. Yes, I think it will be. I think that'll be something we'll be working a lot with Convergence, is how to do that seamlessly. But yeah, it's basically a content transfer as you drag and drop something between two apps, in my opinion. So, but we need to sort out the details on that. Yeah, so Savick mentioned, so if you share a URL plus MIME type, that should be enough for streaming video or whatnot. So yeah, so if it's a web URL, yes, but not, say, like a file URL on the device, file URI. Yes, I would always recommend, when you know you're done with content, to set the state to finalized. That way, your code cleans up after itself as it's done. But until we know you're done, we don't want to clean it up. However, when your device reboots, or for any reason the service process goes away, the service will clean those up. And if they're not, I would really like a bug report on it. But they should be cleaning it up. But that might be a long time. If you don't reboot your phone for a week, that content could be lingering around. But until we have to know the apps are done with it. So Savick asked, will the URL dispatcher be integrated into the Content Hub? So Savick, did you miss the video demo I did of content sharing from Etsy? Because yes, I've already done it. It hasn't landed yet, but you can construct a content URI that shares content and initiates the transfer. So Cheeseburg1 asked for a quick summary of Content Hub. I did that at the beginning of the video. You can just replay the video afterwards instead of repeating it for everybody. And Savik, if you missed the demo I did, you can replay the video and watch that. Yes. So I hear Ted is working on something to let you pick when there's more than one app. But in the URL dispatcher case for when you construct a content URL, it'll include the app ID because we're going to have you. I guess it doesn't have to actually. We could even do something better than that once we have our new peer picker. Yeah, so the URL has the payload there. Yeah, Savik, that works. So right now, my URL dispatcher requires the app ID to be included inside the URL that's constructed. And the idea is you'll have a peer picker that gets displayed inside the scope. So like if you're running a scope and you find some content you want to share, and when you choose, say you want to share it, we'll pop up a peer picker widget or little app that's running out of process that lets you pick a peer, and then it'll pass on that URL to that app along with the app ID. But maybe we could even do something cooler than that, where if you create a URL dispatcher session without or command without a app ID, we automatically pop that up. Ted, you already had an action item. I heard you were already working on this picker to choose an app, and there's more than one app registered for a URL. So today, okay, Savik has a question. When launching the peer, is it the whole app? What if the app instance, if another instance of the app is running? So today, it launches the whole app or switches focus to the current instance of the app, and the app gets a signal saying there's a share requested or an import requested, an export requested, whatever. They can get the dbus signals to do that. So that's what happens today. When we get to using the trusted session stuff, it'll be a lot easier to keep these applications lingering around longer. Like say you start a picking operation, then you switch between other apps and whatever. You might have more than one. I think we're going to work towards the ability to make it'll be optional in the beginning, so we can be backwards compatible. But as an app developer, you could provide a lightweight instance of your app that's packaged as part of the same click, but as a second app in your click that provides the picking operation. That way it doesn't step on the feet of the current running instance. I think that'll be kind of an optional thing that we'll be implementing real soon to let you do that. So yeah, you'll register your handler being under the secondary app that just provides that. That's another thing that Ted's been trying to talk me into doing for a long time, and I've been resistant, but he's finally convinced me that maybe he's right. All right, so maybe we're done. If anybody's have any questions, you can always find me on IRC around pretty much all the time. So feel free to reach. Oh, Stuart has another question. Man, I almost escaped. So Stuart's question is, at the moment, if you have a lot of apps running and app 1 tries to pull content from app 2, sometimes app 1 gets killed while app 2 is showing its picker. Should Content Hub transactions be temporarily exempt from the... there is a bug filed for this, and we have been talking about it, and I think there's already being some work towards that now. I think there might even be a work item for Grayback related to this, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we want to like increase their score so they don't get killed during the picking operation. Now, I think we know how to solve it, and it'll be done. Yeah, the MER guys are going to handle that for us, I think. Hey, Stuart, it was a good question, but we've already got a plan. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. If anybody has more questions, just ping me on IRC anytime. I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks a lot, everybody.